Hey guys, what's going on? It's Kevin from Lean Iron, and I wanted to start this video with a sort of apology. We actually just welcomed our third kid into our family. Our little baby boy was born on Friday, so I have to apologize. The next few videos might look a little more sleepy, a little more lines into the eyes, but hopefully the videos come out clear and you guys at least understand what I'm talking about. I'll have plenty of coffee beforehand. That's actually a great transition into what I'm going to go over today, and it has to do with how often you should exercise. Now, when people ask me this, I will normally say it depends. I'll say sit down with a knowledgeable strength coach or a consultant and really go through the intricacies of that process and how to dial in training frequency based on a bunch of different factors. I am going to try to shoot a quick video today to do my best to summarize a pretty intricate concept with a simple answer. If this comes out clear, I'm glad. If you guys have more questions, just leave a comment below and I'll do my best to answer them. Now, I got this concept from a very high-level strength coach named Ed Coan. Ed Coan had a very simple way of chopping up how often you should exercise, and had to do with three different factors. The first factor is something called intensity. Now, you're going to have to excuse my handwriting here. It's not exactly the prettiest handwriting, but we have intensity. And then the second factor is going to be something called volume. And the last factor, which is the one that is the original question, is how often you should exercise. We're going to call this frequency, which is the scientific term for it, I guess. Frequency. Hopefully we don't run out of room. Hey, look at that, we made it. Just barely, though. So, these three factors are going to be the only three factors that you really have to worry about when it comes to training. Now, how Ed Coan explained this originally is that if you are pushing things to your absolute limit, it means you're well rested, you've got low stress levels in life, you're going to have a really solid diet, you're young, your metabolism's on fire, your hormone levels are optimal. Even then, you can't push all three of these things as high as possible, meaning you can't work out to your absolute maximum every time you come in the gym, doing which would be your intensity. That's how heavy the weights are that you're exercising with. You can't do a high amount of volume, meaning you can't do just tons and tons and tons of sets and reps and just dozens of exercise variations within a workout. And you can't do that all the time. If you do that, what's going to end up happening is your body is going to become overexerted, and the result is usually injury, adrenal fatigue, poor return on investment, obviously. There's a point of diminishing returns where you're just not going to be getting stronger, you're not going to be getting leaner, and then on top of that, there's a high risk of injury for all that too. So, what Ed Coan recommended is if you are taking this broad scope perspective on your training, you can only have two of these at a high level, meaning if you want to lift really heavy weights every time you come in, your intensity is high, but that would mean that one of these two would have to be low, even if you're at your optimum, right? So maybe you do heavy weights and a lot of different sets and reps every time you come in. If that's the case, you shouldn't be coming in very often, right? You're looking at maybe 2 to 3 times a week, especially doing total body workouts. The number of times you can train is going to be pretty low. There's a chance you could chop it up doing like one exercise one day and a completely different exercise the other day, but you start to become very inefficient in your training process. The next variation would be, let's say you don't like lifting very heavy weights, so you go low on your intensity. That means that you could, in theory, lift for a lot, or not lift, I shouldn't say that, train in general. It doesn't have to be weights, it could be body weight, whatever. Your exercise selection could have a large number of sets and reps, and you could do it very often, right? And this is assuming, obviously, that you're healthy, low stress levels, lots of sleep, people not like me. And then, obviously, of course, we could also have the last option, where we have very heavy weights. We make sure that we are not lifting for a lot of sets and reps. Our exercises are just a couple of sets with very heavy weights. Then if that's the case, you can also come in more frequently and try to push up your strength and conditioning levels that way. However, truth be told, there's a fourth option here, and this is one of the plain vanilla types, but it's also one of the most effective, and that is just medium, right? I'm not going to write this the whole way across. You can do medium intensity, medium volume, and medium frequency, right? And that is one of the bread and butter approaches that is going to have a very high return when it comes to exercise selection. Now, the last variable that's not on this board, and it's not one of the categories of training, is your stress levels throughout the rest of your life. So take me for an example, right? If I were to start on a high intensity, high volume program, I probably wouldn't make it for more than a couple of weeks. My body wouldn't be able to keep up because I'm not sleeping a lot with the baby. I've got 2 other kids that I got to watch. I have a job that I got to take care of and run the business too. Probably too much, right? I'd have a high stress level outside of the categories in this training program. And then this is where I'm a huge proponent of taking a realistic approach that's still effective, but also takes into consideration that we're not all 20-some-year-old athletes with 12 hours of sleep a night, no life stresses, and optimal hormone levels. And then all we do is, instead of having 2 highs and a low, we have 2 lows and a high. So if you're going to train very intensely, you wouldn't have to do a ton of sets and reps. If your recovery abilities are already pretty low, you might as well just train high intensity, low volume, meaning not a lot of number of sets and reps, and you don't have to come in that often. 2 or 3 times a week is plenty, right? There's actually plenty of professional athletes that make long, successful careers out of that. Same thing would go for all these other options too. I mean, you could do whatever, high frequency, you're coming in very often, but you know what? You're just kind of doing a couple sets and reps. You're not really going crazy, and you're not really pushing very heavy weights. That's another respectable option. Or if you're someone who really likes, I think I would have to do my last option here, likes to do a lot of sets and reps every time that you come in to exercise, you could probably get away with just a couple of times a week, which would be on the lower end of frequency. And you really don't have to push your the training weights to very heavy levels. You could probably get away with relatively light weights. I mean, sufficient enough to cause a stress response and build some muscle, but you don't need to beat yourself into the ground. That last option, medium all the way across, is still an option. What I would just say, if your recovery is not that great, like mine right now, right? It's not going to be like that forever, but in this phase of life, I'm really not able to recover from intense workouts. You could do something called medium low, which is, I mean, we're really getting into things now, but it would be a medium intensity, I'll just write med, a low volume, and a medium frequency, right? Obviously, you can keep chopping these all over the place too. This is the long answer to that question. It depends when you ask how often you should exercise. If you can control those variables and also take into consideration realistically how much you can recover from due to stresses that come from outside of your workout, this is a surefire way of kind of dialing in that number when it comes to how often you should be in the gym. Hopefully you guys got this. I know it's a bit of a big subject. If you guys have any questions, just give me a heads up, and I'll answer them in the comments section below. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you soon.